Okay, well, once again, I'll be showing you, well, my simple techniques in Photoshop. As I'm not a very sophisticated Photoshop user, but I am able to produce some pretty remarkable results with some very simple tools. So let's get started here with Hattie. Hattie is a good friend of mine. Well, she became a good friend of mine after our shoots together and getting to know her and her boyfriend. So when I look at this image, I can see that the eyes missed focus just a tiny bit. It looks like focus was grabbed here in the eyebrows, so the eyes are a little bit soft. There's really not much to do to this image, but I thought this would be a good image to show you what I like about the Anthropic's Portrait Pro and the proper use of Portrait Pro. As I mentioned before, too many photographers that use Portrait Pro have a very heavy hand in it, and I think the best success is to use a very light hand in using it, and it can save you a lot of time ultimately. So here we go. I like the before and after window pane here. Seems like I always start with her left eyebrow, our right. And I just put all these points into position, and probably more than I need to. Probably am being a little bit of a perfectionist here and making everything move in just the right spot. This is the part that takes the most time. And I wonder sometimes if it would do just as good a job without me making all these minor adjustments. But I tend to be a perfectionist in the things I attempt, at least artistically in life. I like to think I do try my best in all things. But as you can see here, we're just trying to bring the lines to the edge of her face here. Line everything up. That's it. And that's it there. A little bit of a bump here. Yep, not much. This could go back up a little bit, I guess. Okay, there we go. So now we go to the right side here, and we can start to see what we're applying. I generally will apply about a 12 on the face master sculpting. It doesn't do much, but it does just enough. She has big, beautiful eyes already. Everything looks great here. So not really much to do other than make it less than it was at 20. I bring it down to 12. When you first get the software, if you get it, it defaults around 40. And I think mine is defaulting to 20 now because I've been lowering it to 12 so many times it figures that I'm closer to that range. Skin smoothing. It's a nice thing to have. I always cut back on the eyebrows, the eyelashes, and the eyes because I don't want any softening in there. Plus, when you leave the eyelashes, eyebrows unaffected, very sharp, people are going to think twice whether or not you actually used a skin softening filter. Now, because I shot in a very shallow depth of field, there's not much texture in the skin down here anyway. Let's just throw that up there. All right. Oh, I also like to cut it back off the ears. They're still out of focus, but we don't need them to be any softer than they are. There we go. Okay, skin smoothing is done. Skin lighting. Check the on and off. Off. on. Watch the right one. Off, on. This actually does sculpting to the face by increasing highlights and shadows. I like what it's done here. I like it a lot. I think I'm going to cut back some of this filter here on her mouth too. Don't want it to be too sharp, too soft. All right, that looks good. Oh, you know what? The other thing's down here further. You can see that it's added a little bit of smoky eyes. It's very, very subtle. And it defaults right around 38. I like a little bit of smoky eyes, and it's very, very subtle here. I may make it even a little more subtle. And then there's this section, skin color correctness. So this is changing the color to what it thinks the color should be. This is with no adjustment. You see it's warmer than what it thinks it should be. That starts to get a little bit blue, but I think it needs to stay on the warmer side, I think. And if I remember right, looking at the entire image, her face is a little bit darker than her body, so I'm going to jump back here. And this, whoops. Well, that's what happens when you go all the way. But I think I want to try to lighten her face just a bit to get a little closer to her body's tone. I think that's it. Alrighty. We're not going to do anything with the makeup. Her eyes, remember that her eyes were the part that was a little bit soft. So we go down here, we can sharpen the eyes. It's already defaulting to 39, but that's what it does for eyes that are in focus. So I'm going to pump it up just a little bit more. There we go. So when I make these adjustments, if I go up and I say, oh, that's perfect, I then back it off a little bit from where I thought was perfect, because perfect, I find when I'm in the middle of a process, is a little bit too much. So I tend to just back it off a little bit. We can sharpen the eyebrows just a tiny bit too. Just a tiny bit. I'll go over here and use this. We just want a tiny bit. And then we can darken the pupils as it was doing here. But I think we'll just have a tiny bit of darkening, and we'll bring that pupil size down a tiny bit. And you can see here the mouth and nose adjustment darkens her lipstick. I think we'll leave it light. Hair, I don't have that set to do much of anything. Photo, yeah, the photo stays a little bit warmer if I turn that off. There we go. Taking it back out into Photoshop now. So you can see before and after. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot, but just enough that I think it makes it pretty perfect. I'm going to go in here, up here, I'm going to clean the hairs up just a little bit. This is one of the few areas that I'll go ahead and use the cloning brush. You don't want the edge of your brush too hard. That's pretty hard, so I'll bring it down here. I think I usually start around 15 and usually start of opacity around 38. And We're not trying to make it look like she's wearing a cap. We're just trying to get rid of some of the extra flyaways on the side. When you're doing this, be sure to grab an area that, matches the tone and color as best you can. Usually that's going to be on a horizontal plane, not always. Oh, you know what? That bugs me right up here. I'm going to try the little healing brush here. Boom. That took care of that. These are actual, real bougainvillea. So she gets little pieces of flower in her hair. I'm leaving these strands of hair. I find that very pretty. I like it. And we can go over here and soften this up a little bit. Good. Her eyes are still just a little bit too soft for me. So now I'll go over here and grab the sharpening tool, set at 21. And we'll try that right on it. There we go. I think that's best. And then, as I've mentioned to you before, sometimes I'll go in with the burn tool or the dodge tool. Usually I'll start with a little bit of a dodge in the midtones. And then I'll go in with the burn tool in the shadows at 2%. Then I'll do this to the shadows. See how that makes her irises punch out a little bit more? The highlights and shadows around her eye. I like that. And this little highlight on her left side of her face, I can smooth that out a little bit more. She is pretty perfect to start, isn't she? One other thing I like to do in the finish is to go into the highlights, dodge tool in the highlights. About 8%. And then just brighten the highlights in her hair. Sometimes that might be too much, but I like to just, it makes the hair look a little bit fuller, more real. I don't know. A little bit of highlights in the hair, pumped up only 8%. I think it's a nice little touch. I can't see anything else I would do with this image. Like I said, it's pretty perfect to start with. So, there's the finished image. There's the starting image. Both beautiful. This is how I saw her during the photo shoot. And perfect. So, thank you once again for joining me. And hope you found this helpful and simple. See you again. Bye.